groups. Today, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Turkey couldn't continue the peace process with the Kurds.
I don't think it's possible to continue a peace process with those who take aim at our national security and brotherhood in this country.
President Erdogan. With me now is Jordan Matson, a former US soldier who went to fight against Islamic State with the Kurds in northern Syria. You, I think, were there about a month ago, weren't you? Where were you and which groups were you fighting with?
I was fighting with the YPG, or we call it YPG. I fought in Syria, and what we would call Rojava. I fought in Jezza, Sarakani, Tel Hamis, Tel Tamer, Hasakeh, the offensive to Abdul al-ISIS, the offensive on Hasakeh, the offensive on Tel Hamis, and then I went halfway to pushing to Gurdispi, or also known as Tel Abyad. As well, I spent 2 months in Shangal, and that's where, unfortunately, right after that, the other Brit, Eric Schofield and Ashley Johnson.
Okay, but the YPJ are the People's Protection.
YPG.
Yeah,
YPG is for female fighters.
Exactly, so the People's Protection Units. Are they linked to the PKK?
No. No, they've had a loose affiliation because of former ties. Obviously, the PKK is in Iraq and in Turkey. The only thing in Syria is YPG and YPJ.
All right, and when it comes to their efficiency as a combat force against Islamic State, how do they rate?
They have taken more ground from ISIS than any other force fighting ISIS. More than the Iraqi army, more than Peshmerga, more than the Assad regime. There is no other group that has taken the amount of square kilometers that YPG has taken.
And why is that, and how do they do it?
Part of it is just what they're fighting for. You know, the basic principles of human rights. They're the only secular group in Syria fighting. So they're going to push hard for this because these are their families, for one. They believe they're a movement. They believe they're changing the whole local area to be a place for every man, every woman, that you're created equal, whereas most of the local cultures are based off of what ethnic group or religion you are.
And when you were fighting with them, what was the sort of efficiency and skill of the Islamic State fighters you were involved in?
During the beginning, it was a lot higher, but as attrition due to airstrikes and just continued fronts, they had a higher turnover rate, so it was going down. At first, it was more professional when I first arrived, but as, like I said, time went on, it got less and less.
And how well equipped were Islamic State fighters compared to the units you were fighting with?
Well, considering they took a lot of weapons from the Iraqi army when they ran away in Mosul and in Ramadi, they were much more well equipped. They had many more armored vehicles, many more tanks. Those numbers went down after airstrikes, after we could target their heavy support weapons, but still they have the small arms and whatnot that they carried over.
And have you been on hand in the immediate aftermath of some of the atrocities that they've committed?
From what I've seen, the only atrocity I've ever seen was men being hung because we lost a village and we retook it, and those who didn't flee with ISIS originally were hung. But other than that, it's just everything's a front line, so most of the time the villagers leave and it's just us and them fighting back and forth. So what atrocities do committed are in the civilian areas.
But are atrocities committed by both sides? In other words, the units you were fighting with, were they hanging people?
No way.
And is their ultimate goal for some totally independent Kurdistan? Is that what they say this is all about in the end, as well as clearing Islamic State out of Syria and Iraq?
If you look at the YPG, they have a different agenda than the KRG. YPG has said specifically that they just want to be like a regional government. They have no intention of being a separate state. They are fine with working whoever, if it's the FSA or
so like an autonomous Kurdistan,
yes.
Kurdish zone in
like
Iraq,
KRG,
for example.
Yes.
And there are others, though, who want to push further into territory which is now occupied by Turkey, then?
Which are you referring to?
In terms of those who are actually pushing for an independent Kurdistan. This is what concerns Turkey, isn't it?
The thing is the way that Erdogan looks at it compared to what YPG is saying is two different things. Erdogan is concerned that the Kurds will get some type of autonomy. So his analogy is if he destroys them now, then what we call Bakur, or the Kurdish area of Turkey, cannot secede into Rojava. So since the HDP, which is the Kurdish political party in Turkey, won in the elections, politically they were working the peace process and they were making progress to having a solution done. But since that was not the way the more nationalist movement that Erdogan supports wanted, now they're undermining that.
All right, Jordan Matson, thank you very much indeed for coming and talking to us about your experiences.